All right, welcome into the 5 Reasons Sports Fantasy Football Free for All here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. This one is partnered with Underdog Fantasy. This is one of our new partners here at the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We've got a lot of our different properties at the network that are going to be affiliated with this. We're going to kind of try to teach you to play today. I don't know how good our advice is going to be, although we've got a couple of experts here, including one to my right over there, and so we'll get to him here in a second. Let me introduce everybody before we start, and also tell you how to play. The key thing about this, when you go to Underdog Fantasy, whether you download the app or you go to underdogfantasy.com, is to use the code 5RSN. You see it right there next to my name, 5RSN. That's the code that you use because they give you $25. They're literally just handing you $25. No matter how much you deposit, they will give you $25 to play on any of the platforms here. I'm going to teach you about some of them, and this is the kind of thing you can do yourself, or you can bring some of your friends and play your league directly on Underdog Fantasy, again using that code 5RSN when you sign up, either with a free app or on the website. Okay, so we're going to go around here again. I don't know what this is. This is like CNN right now. We've got Alana up there on the top left from Clutch Corner and also from Feel the Heat. We've got Royal Shepherd. He used to be just with Clutch Corner. He's sort of infiltrated himself into a bunch of other shows. So now he's with Extra Yard as well. We've got our guy Simba of Sports, who you know as Matt Perdomo. He's now on Clutch Corner also. And has been on other programs on the network. And also, he's the guy you reach out to if you want to give us money, not just for fantasy football, but to give us money for sponsorship. We've got our guy Alfredo Arteaga in the 5 Reasons hat down there from 3 yards per carry. You can also find him doing yard work on the channel. David Hondell from Shula Bowl right below me. He's kind of frozen in time right now, but at some point he will be able to speak. And then we got our guy Taco About Sports, Taco Friedman, David Friedman, who's actually the only real fantasy football expert here, I actually believe, on the program, although Alfredo might argue differently. All right, and Matt as well probably will too. All right, so this is how you play. Again, you're going to go to Underdog. I'm not mentioning you, Royal. We go to Underdog Fantasy. That's how you play on the website. We're going to put up some screenshots here to try to explain it as we go, but there's a couple of different ways we can play. Again, download the Underdog app, use the code 5RSN when you deposit. There's a couple of different ways to play. We got new young players in the background there as well. All right, so there's a couple of ways that you can play this, okay? If you go to NFL on the app or on the site, they've got a couple of contests right now, and this is sort of how easy this is and how you don't really need to spend that much money to play. They've got a Best Ball Mania 2 $25 entry. You can win $3.5 million. That's more than Udonis Haslem is going to make for not playing basketball this season. You can make $3.5 million, Best Ball Mania, pay $25 to do it. Or if you only want $5 you want to burn, you can play the Puppy 3. That's the challenge they got there. $5 entry. You can win up to $1 million there. The other thing you can do, you can bring your own people to play in drafts. They've got 3-person drafts. They've got 10-person drafts. They've got 12-person drafts, 6-person drafts. Bring your entire league. You can run the whole thing there on Underdog. And look, if you get halfway through it, you can't play it anymore. You can just let the thing auto play for you if you want. Queue up your players and go from there. Although David is shaking his head at that. All right, let's get to it. We'll do a little bit of fantasy football advice here as we go forward. We'll start with Mr. Friedman here. Approaching a game like this at Underdog Fantasy, give me like your 2 best bits of advice.
Yeah, I think the main thing, like I said, it's the idea is it's still fantasy football. You have to look at it. The main difference, you're not worrying about who you're starting and sitting. So to me, I enjoy it more. You're not worrying about injuries as much. You have stacked guys, so you're looking to, build your roster where you're going to fill out your running backs and wide receivers a lot more. That's the main difference. But otherwise, it's still fantasy football. I like to do it because I can do like 10 different teams for $5 and feel like I didn't go crazy.
Well, I think, again, the thing I want to, and you made this point, the great thing about this is there's no waivers. There's no Tuesday, I forgot to set my lineup or any of that kind of stuff. You basically set a team for the entire year and you just let the thing play out for the entire year. Alfredo, I know you've been starting up some leagues, with some of the 3 yards per carry folks. We're going to bring them here onto Underdog. Are you a running back first guy, a wide receiver? I mean, how do you play? Wait for the quarterback till the 7th round?
Well, in any league that has PPR, I always believe in like you have to have a good wide receiver core. But what's interesting about this, like if you click on the top where it says the puppy 3 and you see football and you see BB, you can click on each of those things and it gives you up to date rankings of of where everybody is signing up and what time each draft starts, each draft closes, the prize breakdowns, the scoring for each one. So it's pretty clear. So it kind of leaves you with a map on how to draft.
Matt, again, you take a look at the contest, $5, $25. And as you're throwing them up here, this is what the NFL page looks like. Okay, so you call up NFL on the app, and you've got the 2 top ones I mentioned: the Best Ball Mania 2, the Puppy 3, $25 entry, $5 entry. You go below that, you can enter some of your own players for the drafts. If you see up at the top, and Alana, this is going to interest you more, I think. Don't go to it yet. You see, and I know we don't have a lot of MLB people in our audience, but you go a little bit further. We're going to start doing this with NBA starting in October. So I think you get a feel for it. Some of our NBA folks who are more into that, you can get a feel for it on here. You can bring your own leagues. Obviously, fantasy basketball has gotten pretty big. We play it throughout the network. So NBA is something that you're going to be able to do. But again, there's 2 different things here. There's these featured contests, and then there's the drafts. Matt, scroll through a little bit so can kind of show what the next screen looks like. So this is a tournament. This is the Best Ball Mania tournament. You can see right now they've already got 156,000 entries. Again, this is $25, but the best part of this is if you sign up with 5 RSN, they're giving you $25. So this is basically a free entry in a tournament. And you look at how many people are involved in this. Right now, they've got 86% full. So make sure if you want to get in this one that you go quickly. You look at the prize breakdown, first place over $1 million. And then obviously, I don't know what that extra dollar is for. I think once they give it the million, I don't know what that extra buck goes to. I guess that's for the tip. Then second place, $250,000, and then go beyond that. But that contest runs through September 9th. So there's some time to get into that contest. It's 18 rounds. You just draft it. When your time comes up, if you've got your notifications on, then basically, they'll tell you when your time is up. If you don't have somebody queued up, hopefully you have somebody queued up if you're not available to play. But otherwise, you can play. And again, the clock there is 30 seconds. So you got to make the picks pretty quickly. You don't have a lot of time to think about it. One of the annoying things about fantasy football I've always found is when people are taking 2-3 minutes to make picks, okay, and get distracted and all the rest of this stuff. This thing you got to do relatively quickly. Matt, go to the next one because the puppy draft, I think that's another one we got up here. This one's only $5 for entry. That's it. So, I mean, you throw down 5 for the chance to win $200,000 first prize. That's only 60% full right now. Again, that one runs through September 9th. The season starts, obviously, I think it's actually that night, right, guys? I think it starts that night on a Thursday night. Again, the pick clock is 30 seconds. Matt, I'll go to you on this now. Give us a little bit of your advice going into the season.
Don't spend too much. I'm just kidding. No, for real. I mean, just have fun with it. Use the autopilot for the last half because it's a very long draft. But join as many as you can. The best ball and what was the other one? The puppy bowl. You can put multiple. You can play multiple in that same thing. So just do a bunch of them and good luck, man. And if you win, give us some money. Throw it to us.
Yeah. Especially if you own a business. If you own a business, then sponsor with us, send some of it back to us that way, and Matt will make a little of that. Royal, I know you're a football guy now instead of an NBA guy in the network. So
that's right. That's right.
Exactly. So I and you used to be in this host chair. Give me the clutch corner advice for fantasy football this season.
Trade everything on your roster for Devontae Adams.
There's no trading. There's no trading in Underdog.
Be quiet, Silver. You already had your chance to talk. This is my chance to talk. But no. So I'm kind of with Friedman where I turned my head around for you, Barack. I'm with Friedman where you draft a bunch of wide receivers. Like that's where all the points are going to come from. you stick to that formula, and then you draft everything else down the line. I mean, I went against my own advice. I'm actually drafting now. I drafted Zeke first, but I drafted a couple of terrible wide receivers, but I made sure I got some good pass catching tight ends. But you want to make sure that you get a bunch of receivers to kind of fill your roster out, because that's where the majority of your points going to come from in most PPR leagues.
Yeah,
right,
and
I'm
people
gonna get to Alana here to ask who her running back 3 is, because I know that question came in from Michael. Michael, feel free to ask Alana more questions that I'll send her.
Do not encourage this.
and people should know that their scoring is exactly like the fantasy leagues that you play on Yahoo and ESPN. Their standard scoring for PPR, it's half a point per reception, and more importantly, if you click on the little icons at the top of each contest, you could look at the stats for each one, and the rake, if you watch the bottom of the screen, it says 10%. And if you compare it to their competitors, that's as good as it's going to get. It's as low as it usually is in this industry.
Alana, actually, people are helping here on the comments thread, and although even as the CEO of 5 Reasons Sports, I don't have access to the comments thread for some reason.
We love this. I have Google. I did a little research in the 2 seconds.
It says, Alana, just say Myles Gaskin. That's all you got to say. I don't. Let's ask, actually, David, since this is a Dolphins crowd. Where would you put? Let me give you some Dolphins folks. And we've lost David Hundell. He's disappeared into an FIU vortex here. We're not able to get him back right now. There he goes. Draft FIU guys. As soon as we find one, T.Y. Hilton's hurt, and he's the only one I know about. David, let's get to the Miami guys. All right. So let me throw this at you. Tua. What? Provided he's actually starting week 1. Where would you have him? Like, in what quarterback space? Not what round, but like what quarterback space? He is your 10th quarterback, your 15th quarterback. Where is he?
He's not going to be anybody's starting quarterback going into the year, so I guess that makes him outside 10 at least, right? But I mean, it is somebody that we've seen a lot of him. It looks like there's some potential there, and I'm a bit high on Jalen Waddle, so I just think the offense in general it'll give him a low floor. But it's a potential guy. You got to wait and see. We haven't seen enough of Tua in a Tua offense yet.
So you would say your number 1 Dolphin receiver, I'm including Gesicki in this, receiver or tight end, would be Waddle?
I mean, I think
Fuller?
In terms of the other tight ends that may be available and value, it's probably Gesicki. But I think the guy who I want on my team is Waddle. He's going to be there super late compared to the other guys there. So take a flyer on him, and if he blows up,
Your number 1 quarterback this year, Alfredo, is?
It's always Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes, but Josh Allen is pretty close. On Tua, yeah, David's right. Outside of the top 10, but he's worth a flyer if you could get him as your backup quarterback late in the draft. You never know, because he could be a top 10 fantasy quarterback if he is as efficient as he was last year. And remember, he did have 3 rushing touchdowns last year, so he can give you that as well.
Matt, your number 1 running back this year is actually, before you get to that, here's my thought on running backs. People always overdraft the running backs from the previous year. Because if you look at it every year, the top 10 running backs change. The 3 or 4 guys will be the same, but the other 6 or 7, again, nobody was expecting the kid in Jacksonville to emerge as a top 10 back last year. There's always a few of those. So give me your number 1. I mean, is it Derrick Henry by default at this point, or can you see someone else, Matt?
I don't know. I kind of like Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. Those 2 are my top 2 guys this year. Cook is good. I nothing against him and whatnot, but I have those 2 guys ahead of him for me personally. Christian McCaffrey, he's always been beasting. I think every year he's consistently been just crazy good. So
yeah, that boy go ham in the training room while he's hurt. I don't get the fascination with Christian McCaffrey, bro. Every year he's listed as the top running back, or it's been like the past 2-3 years. And every year you can only expect 6 games out of them, and they still just do the same thing again every year. I never draft Christian McCaffrey because I always feel like he's going to get hurt.
What is the earliest you would draft a running back, Royal? Excuse me, a quarterback. A quarterback. What is the earliest you would draft a quarterback?
You can get a good quarterback round 6, 7. I like to fill out the drafts. Once you start to see the run on quarterbacks, I usually have about 5 or 6 of them that I'd be willing to start. So once you start to see the run on quarterbacks, you want to get yourself you don't necessarily need a top tier quarterback. You can get one of the middle tier quarterbacks and still be fine throughout the season. So maybe around 6, 7-ish is usually when I start looking at the quarterback market.
I feel like year after year after year, I ended up with Tony Romo because I always waited until the 8th round.
He was a good fantasy quarterback.
He was. Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, you have to look at it in a little ways like the
year
stock
after
market.
year. When was the last year he played?
Not in a little.
I mean, when I was playing.
When was the last time you played?
I'm old. But I had in one league, I kept winning this league with a bunch of the media guys because I had Peyton Manning for 10 years because it was a keeper league, and I just kept keeping Peyton. But once I lost Peyton, I would draft running backs, draft receivers, and then Tony Romo would always be sitting there in the 8th round, and like he'd give you good production every single year. I didn't care the fact that he effed up in the playoffs every single year. By that time, I was out of it. All right, Alana, I'm going to you. Let's ask Alana some specific questions here. Okay, so does anybody?
Let's not here? You know what? Let me just tell you a little story. Last time I was invested in football was in 2010 when I was covering the Packers with NBC Sports, which was Comcast Sportsnet at the time. So I'm Jordy Nelson, Aaron Rodgers, that's who's in my head. Aside from that, I'm just here to listen and soak it in.
Well, Aaron's still playing. I mean,
yes, that's a whole mess. Raw's a Packers fan too, though. We've bonded over this.
Don't bring me into this mess, Alana. I don't want to talk about it.
I need someone else to fill the void.
I was going to give you the answer to whatever question he asked you. Now I'm not.
Oh, well, okay. So, would you take a Packers back this year?
Sure. I don't know.
Aaron
Listen,
Jones.
I go with who I like, right? Like in any situation, in most things, I just pick who I like. So if I like them, I'm taking them. Doesn't matter if they're good or not.
Casual flex by the individual.
That's a good way to.
This is how you go broke in fantasy. Don't do it like I do.
Well, look. Usually, David. I mean, the reality is, a lot of times the person who doesn't always. I know Devontae Adams season. I get it. Well, he's the only guy that Rodgers has to throw to. They haven't drafted a receiver for him in 20 years. So that's basically all.
They still got Tunyon at tight end. Valdez Scantley is a pretty
Randall
solid
Cobb,
option.
bro.
Oh yeah, they did just get Randall Cobb back.
Got his boy back.
Yeah, he's back from Donald Driver's coming back next, guys.
And I would say, and I would tell people that are nervous about David Bakhtiari being out for the first 6 weeks. The guy who's replacing him is really good. Elgin Jenkins is eventually his replacement at left tackle, and he's an up and coming player. He's going to be pretty good in Bakhtiari's absence.
You know what I love about this is on one hand, we've got references to Jordy Nelson on the top left corner. On the other, we've got breakdowns of the left tackle situation for the Packers from Alfredo. This is the depth and versatility of our network.
I'm vintage over here.
Alana, I will say this. You probably, of the 6 of us, if we did a fantasy draft here, in terms of fantasy, you probably would be drafted first. Okay, so we'll go there. Okay.
Bullshit. No, she wouldn't.
All right, so
Maybe
here,
top 3.
Before we close here, again, I just want to throw it out one more time. If you're still with us, I apologize. Underdog Fantasy is where you want to go. Download the app. It's easy. It just takes a second. You can get it on Google Play. You can get it on iTunes. There you go, Chris. Look at that. What is that about? And then essentially just use that code 5RSN. They'll give you $25. So even if you don't know who the backup left tackle is, the Packers, like Alfredo does, you still could do really well in this league. Alfredo, how would you go about drafting offensive linemen in a fantasy league? I've always felt that offensive linemen got looked past because once the fantasy football era started, nobody cares about them because you just.
Well, there's a way to
make
it really, really interesting. There's a way to make it really, really interesting. Every holding penalty, you get minus points. Every time your quarterback gets killed, you get minus points. So obviously, you want to draft guys that don't give up.
That's not that interesting, I promise you.
Yeah, so obviously you would want to draft guys that don't get your quarterback killed and don't commit penalties,
So Austin Jackson's not going top 5.
No, he would not. he's although if you guys want a funny story, me and Royal are, and so is Matt, in the league with Adam Barai. And Adam Barai last night, he's the commissioner, by the way, and he said that he wanted to break a record,
which was the biggest mistake, making Adam Barai.
God help us all, bro.
And Adam Barai said that he wanted to set a record for transactions as far as trades.
Well, of course,
it's in league history. And by the way, his name is Trade the Kids, right? Well, the league is an entire day old. There's been 5 trades on the table. All 5 have fallen through. All five have been negotiated back and forth, and then both sides have pulled out at the last second. Including me and Gad have been negotiating for 2 hours, and we can't come to an agreement for Deontay Johnson. So
that sounds like the string between me, Greg, and Adam about all the trades we hear about that end up falling through. So actually, that's appropriate. I just want Adam in a fantasy basketball league because he's going to be forced to draft Tyler Hero first. I want him to draft all of the whatever the kids that are left. I think that needs to happen. We'll put that on Underdog also. All right, we're actually going to end with a little bit of expertise here. I'm going to give Friedman 60 seconds here to. You're raising an eyebrow at me. I'm going to give you 60 seconds here. Give me your sleepers. Your sleepers this year. People are playing Underdog Fantasy. They're still sticking around with us here. Give me a couple of sleepers.
I mean, for me, I always go like we're talking about value, and I'm not going to go names. Let's go in a different direction here. What you brought up earlier about this being sort of like the stock market, right? Mm-hmm. That is what it is. Like at some point, if you eliminate the names that you know, you're looking at value and how much you have to pay for someone and what they can do for you. Like that's simplified for yourself. That's why I don't do the Dolphin stuff. Like for me, if it's there, it's not. I don't want to invest in it in a way that doesn't make sense because I want to win some money. Like if you want to win money, do it the right way is all I'm saying. Is that 60 seconds? I don't know.
It's like the stock market and the fact you don't want to be emotional, right? You're not holding on to a stock because you like the company. You're playing the trends, right, Alfredo? I mean, you play.
Yeah, if you can get Deshaun Watson cheap. Oh, never mind.
No, don't start. You know what? If that allows me to put Deshaun Watson and Tua in the title of this, so it gets more views, I appreciate you doing it.
It's also about being a little bit educated about who's on the way up and who's on the way down. Like on the Dolphins, it's obvious. Mike Gesicki, if you watched him this preseason, like he could easily be a top 5 fantasy tight end. So he's underdrafted in most leagues. If you could get him like in the 7th round, obviously that's a good pick.
But Alfredo, let's be honest. What was the last good Dolphin fantasy proposition? Ricky?
Ronnie Brown, the year that that's a great question because I actually have the answer for it. Ronnie Brown, the year that they were absolutely horrific with Cam Cameron, the first 4 games, he was top 3 running back in fantasy.
So you're going back to this is where we're at right now. 2000. You just took us back to 2007 because that's 14 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. To a team that went 1-15, and you knew that after 4 weeks, Ronnie Brown was top 3 in running backs before it all fell apart. You know who doesn't even know that? Ronnie Brown. If you ask Ronnie Brown, he would not be aware of that. He would not know that actually occurred. Well, they've not had anybody worth drafting since.
You know what? Well, you know what? I'm shortchanging one guy. Devontae Parker 2 years ago, the year that they were 5-11, Devontae Parker was top 10 wide receiver. So
what about Jay Ajayi? Wasn't he like one of the top backs?
He did, but he kind of came out of nowhere though that year, right? Like he was. I don't think he was heavily drafted. That was 16.
And he had and he had like 4 monster fantasy games and like 6 bad ones.
Yep.
So you don't want those guys. You want the guys that are consistent, giving you the same points consistently every single week.
All right, Alana, I'll let you have the last word. It could be about anything. What's that?
I said, did Jarvis not exist?
There you go. That's another one.
Jarvis
in PPR leagues.
But David, Jarvis was only really good in the PPR leagues, right? Because he gave you a ton of catches.
So in
right?
most of the leagues that I play in,
okay,
That's
true. That's true. But he was getting 7 yards a catch. But yes, that's no, you're right. PPR.
I don't. It's a stock, right? I don't care how it happens.
That's a good point. That's a good point. All right, we're gonna let a lot of close here. It could be on anything.
Guys, just go play. What else is there to say? $25. Use the code. Do it. I mean, right?
That's a good way to end here. Use the code 5RSN. Again, go to Underdog Fantasy. Download the app. Sign in. It's simple. Throw down $25. you're going to get the $25 back. Okay. So just play. That's the way to do this. And if you've got a league, bring it onto the app. I got to talk to Adam. Why the hell didn't he bring his league onto the app? Bring it onto the app. Play there. You don't need to play at ESPN or Yahoo. ESPN just basically put a fake high school on the screen. You don't want to give them more money. Okay, so play on Underdog Fantasy. Use the code 5. You know what? You could draft some Bishop Sycamore players if you want. Okay, this is a fake sports network. We've got that. This is all we're gonna do here. All right. Thanks to David. Thanks to the other David. I don't know where the hell he went, although he was in the comments. Thanks to Alana for the expertise. Thanks to Royal for I'm not really sure what. Thanks to Matt for bringing us the account. Thanks to Alfredo for telling us about the fourth tackle in the Green Bay rotation.
Elgin Jenkins. Go Elgin Jenkins.
Don't draft Elgin Jenkins, though. Don't draft Elgin Jenkins. Also, don't draft any Dolphins. You'll always be disappointed. Have a good night, everybody.